It's Europe calling with Terry Whitehead and Vince Tracy. Well, we've got a very different sort of podcast in some respects today. Let me give you the date first. It's the 24th of February and it's the year just absolutely flying by. 2026 and practically into March. Isn't that weird? Anyway, we've had a fabulous day here today. It's been blue skies. The wind has been very low. Definition on the mountain has been brilliant. And all in all, I certainly can't complain. More so now because normally we do things on the telephone. But it just so happens I've got Terry with me in the studio. So, Terry, nice to have you here.
Great to be here, Vince. Like good old times again.
It is absolutely wonderful. Let me just ask you, what's it been like in Alfaz today? Is it
Very good, very similar to here, I'd imagine. Nice blue skies. Had a nice long walk this morning and had to get back home and change my shirt. I was soaking wet with sweat. It was really that warm. But if you move out the sun and into the shade, you notice the temperature difference. But a very, very pleasant day. The sort of day you wish it was like all year round.
Well, I was talking with Neil earlier, who's not that far from you, and he just got out and done the same. So I think we're all at it now.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, well, let's see what the UK media and the Spanish media and bits of everything today. So let's start with this one. I've got Trini Lopez. Here we go. Lopez, that it's not too early for you?
Oh, no, I don't go to bed till about 3, 4 in the morning, California time.
Let's welcome in Australia, Frank Highfield. A very good day to you, Frank.
Good day. It's good talking to you, Vince.
Thank you very much.
Over here at the moment it's very cold. It's around about sort of 15 degrees, would you believe?
Send me the pillow that you dream of.
And it's an absolute pleasure to say hello to Johnny Tillotson in America. Johnny, how are you today?
Vince, doing great, and it's wonderful to be on your program, and thank you for inviting me.
Great music, interesting guests. What more could you want? Well, there we are. That's a few memories coming by. And let's get to the press then. And the first one talks about the Taliban passing a new law in Afghanistan, allowing husbands to beat their wives as long as there's no serious bodily harm, and a new criminal code published by the group. This is a 90-page penal code signed by the Hibatullah Akhundzada. I'm not going to make any apologies for not knowing how to pronounce that name. It's the Taliban's supreme leader, setting out different levels of punishment for people depending on their standing in society. Article 9 of the code divides Afghan society into 4 categories: religious scholars, the elite, the middle class and the lower class. It appears to create a caste system in which offenders are categorized as either free or slave, with women being placed on the same level as slaves. Disturbing clauses state that slave masters or husbands can give out physical punishments to their wives or subordinates. Meanwhile, if a religious scholar or a member of the elite commit an offence, the consequence is limited to advice or a court summons for the middle class. The same punishment can result in imprisonment, while the lower class face both corporal punishment and imprisonment. The code, called the Mahakumu Jazi Usulnama, has been distributed across courts in the country, prompting waves of outrage online from activists outside Afghanistan. When you actually look, Terry, at the the way that we had the 9/11, the furore about people being taken out and this, that and the other, I don't know about you, I find that really, really disturbing that a group of men can feel that you can do that to a woman, and this is 2026.
What's not to like about it, Vince? No, seriously. It's medieval. These people are remaining in the medieval. They haven't gone back. They're remaining in medieval times. In fact, in medieval times, I think women were a damn sight freer than that's for sure. It's a truism of what's happening in the world today. It's completely upside down. You're struggling to find a country that's free and truly democratic. Certainly not the standard countries you thought would always be in that box. A lot of them are no longer in that box. And that is really, really disturbing. The Taliban, what they do. Their place is in hell, so I don't really care about them. I just feel sorry for the women folk over there. Perhaps there should be as many women as men over there. Maybe they should get together one day and rise up against the men over there. Wish they would. But failing that, there are many governments in this world that are doing not the same, but an atrociously bad job of so-called democracy, as we know, we can see on a daily basis. And it is very worrying times. Very, very worrying times. So I'm getting on, so it's not really going to bother me. I'll be long gone before there's too much trouble, but you worry about your kids and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. What sort of world are they inheriting, you know? It really hurts me to feel that I'll be leaving this world in this condition, and there's not much I can do about it.
I think it's what motivates me to make these podcasts still, because obviously, if I didn't feel annoyed about things like this, I would have totally wasted my education, wasted my experience, wasted everything else that I've ever stood for. And certainly in our lifetime, I think things had to change over certain things, and that might come into the podcast later. But I think when we were talking about this offline earlier, you were talking about the gender business that in the UK they're not letting people know the gender.
That's right. Yeah, in the UK now, in your lady gets pregnant, goes for a scan, and quite early on they can tell you the sex of the baby, and you can decide to ask for that, have knowledge of it, or have the birth without knowledge of it. It seems to be, certainly in my family, there's big fiestas to reveal, like I say, they call them reveals, don't they? Reveal the sex of the forthcoming child. A big party and either pink or blue streamers and banners, etc. So it's just a case of asking when they're having that scan, is it a male or a female? But there are many hospitals now in the UK will not give you that information. You can ask for it, but they won't give it to you. Why? Because there are many women of certain races who are desperate to know if they have a girl child in them, because they are then under pressure to abort it.
Yeah.
That's the situation we get. So that's the link with what the medieval world of Taliban. It actually crosses over into European world and in Britain.
I think the thing that really I've got to a point in my life is that it's quite necessary to get three separate areas of your own thinking right. Number one for me is how we come into this world. We'll come back to that in a second. Number two is how we get out of this world. And France is now just going through legislation which is basically giving free rein to anybody who wants to just bump somebody off. And then it's the bit in the middle that we can affect each other and meet each other and chat and discuss and see if we can get things right. But going back to this business of when people are coming into the world, obviously I've always found this a difficult area because the Catholic Church that I belong to has got very, very firm ideas on it. And, I always make it quite simple by saying if my mum and dad and your mum and dad had decided to abort, well, we wouldn't be talking to each other. No. So I'm now looking at something that's going through the Commons and the Lords in the UK, and it's to do with being able to abort right up to the very end of a pregnancy. Campaigners are talking about the chief executive, Heidi Stewart, who's been pushing for this change since 2016. And she said this is a landmark moment for women's rights in this country and the most significant change to our abortion law since 1967. There will be no more women investigated after enduring a miscarriage. No more women dragged from their hospital beds to the back of a police van. No more women separated from their children because of our archaic abortion laws. And then I think this, for me, says probably what I really want to feel. However, the Society for the Protection of Unborn Children said it was horrified by the vote. The organisation's public policy manager said if this clause becomes law, a woman who aborts her baby at any point in pregnancy, even moments before birth, would not be committing a criminal offence. Now, even the very limited protection afforded by the law is being stripped away. And that really is quite worrying, because in my lifetime, I think what I've had to learn more than anything is the fact that most men, I can't say every man because I think it would be totally wrong to say this as that, but most men take a long time to actually get the values right. You know, by all means, it's all very nice being a young man, having a few beers, going out, having a little bit of a fling. And I think there aren't that many men who haven't been either near this sort of serious situation or have been involved in it completely. And I think that's the thing I would like to think that I feel I've improved and achieved in my life. Coming from sort of a repressed sort of teenager, because my dad just didn't like anything at all, didn't like me going to any clubs, and obviously the DJ bit, the music, and you know, all that sort of stuff kicked in. But I think that now people think it's acceptable to just have a night's pleasure, and then going right up to the very end, you can just say that's it, you know, and that
Kill child.
Yeah. Difficult. It's very difficult.
It is difficult. It always has been difficult, and I've got no answer to that, other than I completely disagree with the time schedule that you've been given, in as much that is a crime for me. I've always been on the edge regarding abortion, because I can see pros and cons for it, but there has to be a limit. There has to be a limit. You either consider that the point of conception, then that is a child, or at some point, or even at the point of birth, that becomes a child, or some point in between it becomes a child.
Yeah.
I believe at the point of conception it's not a child. I'm not knowledgeable enough to tell you when the point of during the pregnancy that the embryo becomes a child. But I do know that I do know this is my granddaughter, bless her. She was pregnant and she lost her child at 22 weeks. And she had to give birth to a dead child, and it really knocked her about. And bless her, she had a funeral for the dead child as well. Charlie, can't call him a child. Charlie is his name.
Yeah.
He was 22 weeks, and I've seen a picture of the fetus, and you know it's a tiny little thing.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie was there. Charlie existed for a brief moment, and still be with us. Charlie will be with us. There's no doubt about that. It's so when people are talking at the point of just before the point of birth, you could legally abort a child. That's murder. There's no other word for it.
And I think also it lends itself quite clearly to me to the difference between our little bit of pleasure as males, then the 9 months and the birth, which of course can even lead to death of the woman. And then also the fact that if you are a responsible guy, you come back into the frame and start looking after your family and start growing up, in actual fact. And I think this is something that I would say is, if I'm going to be proud of anything in life, that would be one thing that I think I feel a lot better and more happy and at ease with myself than maybe what I could have been like had I gone on through the swinging 60s and been that way, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry, well, we've come to our second story of the podcast, and this is another weird one. Okay, I picked this up in the papers this week, and it's a new phenomenon known as therian. Is emerging among teenagers and young adults in Spain. Have you heard of it?
No.
Good, because I hadn't either, and I was thinking maybe I should have done. Participants describe themselves as having a psychological or spiritual connection with non-human animals and often express this through gestures, movement, or animal-inspired attire. The trend is primarily practiced and shared within the youth community, especially on social media platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And then the next paragraph tells me what being a Therian means. Those who consider themselves Therians often describe their identity as more than a hobby or costume choice. According to reports, members believe they have a deep psychological or spiritual connection with a particular animal species, such as a wolf, dog, fox, or cat, and some express this connection through gestures, movements, or visual styles. A young Spanish Therian, identified only as Finn for privacy, told reporters that he feels connected to a grey albino wolf and has felt that way for years, wearing a homemade mask and accessories reflecting his chosen animal. He explained that the connection feels personal and meaningful rather than a joke or a performance. I have to be very honest, I didn't believe this was a serious article, I must be honest.
Just goes to show there's a lot of mental illness in this world, as far as I'm concerned. That's the short answer to that. Having said that, we live in a social media paradise now,
Yeah.
where everybody has got to get onto that screen one way or another. And the more radical you can be, the more obnoxious you can be, the better chance you've got of getting hits, getting likes, getting followed, and becoming something that you're not. So in other words, I think the bulk of these people were probably destined to be nothings in this world. And rather than accepting that and get on with their life, they're trying to create this ultra persona to have their 5 minutes of fame, if you like. Having not heard of what you're talking about, that I can fully understand it in that way. But there's not a lot different, Vince, if you've got a cat. You're 19 years old, you tell me.
Yes.
That's a long time to have a cat. So I would guess that cat's part of the family.
Yeah.
So, and we've had dogs most of our lives, so every dog was part of the family. And it's a horrible thing when we have to have them put down or they die. But it doesn't mean to say I'm going to have to dress up as a dog to feel they're on part of my dog's life. Though I must admit, you do see a lot of people with pets, and you see the dog, and then you look at the person, and you think, oh, there's a reason why you chose that dog, because some people do tend to look like their pets, I think. But it's a bridge too far. I just feel it's a prank. It's a social media. I hate that word, social media. Anyway, social media trick, ploy to buy their 5 minutes of fame rather than get off their backsides and do something good for a change.
I feel very similarly, and am reading again in several Spanish cities, including Bilbao, Pamplona, Malaga. Social media circulated meetings points drew hundreds of curious young people attracted by the idea or simply by the viral intrigue around it. And so it goes on in Barcelona. A planned meetup intended to showcase or bring together Therian participants grew an estimated 3,000 people, primarily curious onlookers and social media spectators. I think for me, if I am honest, this came to my attention around about 3 years ago, possibly 4 years ago, from England. And it was to do with what the teachers do when kids turn up in the classroom. And, they were saying, this is serious, intelligent, qualified teachers saying that you've got to allow the child to go through this, and you don't tell them off and don't stop it. And you allow them to come in dressed, quite honestly, I treated it then as I feel now. If a child comes into a classroom acting that sort of behaviour, give them a saucer of milk, give them a little kennel, don't give them proper food, don't let anything else normal happen to them, because quite frankly...
Yeah, but you'd lose your job. You'd lose your job. You've got to agree. I think on the radio this afternoon I was listening to somebody was saying that the government are bringing in the UK, are bringing in laws now, which basically means that primary school, like 5-year-old kids, that your lad called Fred can go to school in a dress if he wishes to. Now, on the one hand, I've got to think, kids dress up, they do things, but there's something a bit more sinister to that. If Fred goes to school in a dress, he's going to have everything pulled out of him. Everyone's going to take the proverbial, as far as I'm concerned. Certainly if he's a bit older than 5, if he's 8 or 9, and Fred turns up in a dress, it's disruptive would be the word. I don't think there'll be a lot of teaching going on that day. And the teacher's job is to teach kids, and kids' job is to listen and understand. So my point would be that Fred should not turn up to school in a dress. He can wear a dress around the house as much as he wants, but Fred should go to school dressed as Fred, and so as not to be a disturbance to the class and disturb everybody else's education at the very least. But Vince, I don't know about you, but when I was at school, we had one disruptive kid in the class. I remember that. He was a bit disruptive. He threw a punch at, well, he actually did punch one of the teachers. And he is where he is today. He is where you expect him to be. But other than that, throughout my school life, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anybody saying they were gay, or felt there were boys that felt they were girls, or girls that felt they were boys. Didn't happen. I've no doubt there were, but obviously in those days it was suppressed, and nowadays it isn't. But I have to think that now, every child, no, that's the wrong way to say this. You're not an average child unless you've got something wrong with you. It's a crazy thing to say, but the special needs thing that the British government brought out yesterday about the billions that they're going to pump into special needs for kids, and there are kids that need special needs. I just happen to believe, I don't believe there are that many kids that need that much attention. I just think they need a bit more care at home, and bring themselves on the right track. Yes, if a child is whatever end of necessity it needs help, should get the help, but it should get the help at a special school, because what the government in the UK are doing now, basically, they're loading it back onto the general school. They're believing that kids should be in the normal school and getting the special attention at the normal school. If you've got a class of 30 kids, Vince, and one of them needs special needs that he doesn't talk, or he's deaf, or he really can't follow the class, or he's disruptive, or whatever, the whole class, the other 29, are going to suffer. Now, the woke brigade go, yeah, for that reason we've got to help that one child in that class. Yeah, at the detriment of 29 others. No, I don't think so. That child needs help, but will need help in another class. And they'll say then, yeah, but we haven't got that help at the school. At the school we've only got the general teachers that we've got. We can't afford any more teachers, because I don't know how many special needs teachers you're going to need to cover every special needs case at every age group, at every level in a school. You're looking at quadrupling the number of teachers that you've got, because you're going to need special needs teachers in maths, special needs teachers in grammar, in English, whatever, across the board. So at some point, I believe, somebody's got to blow a very loud whistle and go, just stop a minute, this has got completely out of hand. The same as we can't have 9 million people on benefits in the UK. 9 million people on benefits in the UK. That's impossible. Don't tell me they all need the benefits. I'm sure a lot of them do. But I really believe that a lot of those do not need the benefits, and they're working the oracle, shall we say. I'm completely against this whole woke idea and everything going down to the lowest common denominator, because the end of that is the breakup of civilization. I know that sounds a ridiculous thing to say, but extend those thoughts forward as to what that class of 30, where 29 of the kids who want to get on can't get on, eventually someone's going to beat the crap out to number 30 because he's holding the rest of us back, you know?
I go back to completely when I was nothing to do with teaching. I went to a St. Joseph's primary school in Birkenhead. I didn't really see any evidence of any special needs at all. No. Remembering that we all had just come after the war, and basically our own parents didn't have any luxuries or anything like this. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, so I went to the Catholic Grammar School, which was one for most of the Wirral Peninsula. So basically, I didn't really see any special needs at all there. You either did well, and if you didn't get your GCEs, it was because, in my case, I didn't work hard enough.
Yeah.
Although becoming a teacher did give me an insight into the fact that the bar is level only when it suits the government at the level that they want the judges to decide you've passed and become good enough at a certain subject. So, for example, when I left, you had to, and I'm pretty sure it was fairly similar to yourself, when you had to have 5 O-levels, then basically, if they didn't have the money to fund the A-levels and then the university places, the bar was changed up or down to decide whether or not the economy could stand the
control the result.
So I completely didn't do. I didn't really do well at my first hurdle, 4 O-levels, and then basically I didn't really think too much about it after I'd gone and got a job and worked for a while. It was 26 when I was a club DJ and I was given the chance to think about it. I went back and I did my 2 A-levels in the first year and 2 A-levels in the second year, and basically I didn't do anything with them. There was no guidance, no careers advice or anything like that. Yeah. So it wasn't until I made my own decision at the age of 36 to go back because I'd read that there was the chance of doing a mature degree. So the first thing I did when I went into the college library at the College of St Mark and St John in Plymouth, I read the Communist Party manifesto, because we'd all lived with the spectre of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. And the thing that leapt at me from that pamphlet was basically that the only way to defeat capitalism was to defeat the family. Now, I think it's taken them a long time to get on track with this. In between the time I came away from being qualified and then getting my teacher's qualification, I think they've studied the cultural hegemony bit that I bang on about, which is Antonio Gramsci doing what Karl Marx did, sitting in a cell, thinking about how to defeat this wonderful world that seems to be making its money and people a lot happier. And basically, I think if you look into the origins of this Fabian society we've spoken about, when you look at the influences of the Labour Party in particular as leaders who have gone through and are in the Fabian society, certainly Tony Blair, certainly Keir Starmer, you can see that for me, what they're doing is they're getting people into all key positions. Rather than fighting a civil war, which might have to come later, they're getting people in key positions. So all this nonsense that's being taught about these kids having to become cats, dogs and guinea pigs and anything else you can put your hands on, I think that is coming through some sort of woke teaching at the teacher training level. I can't see how a body of sensible, qualified, thinking people can suddenly become that stupid. I can't see that.
Well, it's very, hang on, it's very easy, Vince. You and I, if we manage to agree on this, could actually convince the whole of the people listening to us they should be Liverpool Football Club fans. We could just keep going on a daily basis, belittling any other football club in the Premier League and talking and building up Liverpool Football Club from all angles, that subconsciously everybody listening to this would become a Liverpool Football Club fan. And this is, to me, is what you've been describing out about the Ferium thing. There's hundreds of these things going on at the minute on the social media platforms. And it's all a way of planting an idea in your head, like you say, destroying society, creating crazy things, telling a load of lies. There's videos out there which really looks like it's the person that's talking, but it's not. And how do you differentiate between the truth? We don't know anymore. A year ago, we could differentiate between truth and a lie. Today, we can't. Now, how are we going to differentiate between the truth and a lie? The only way around this, and it's been muted by somebody recently, somebody quite important, that all social media should be scrapped. Gone, finished, abolished. Go back to basics. But then you're down to reading what's on the news and in the radio and the newspapers, because they've traditionally controlled the hearts and minds of the people. Like I've said on many occasions, the Sun newspaper in the UK elects the Prime Minister at every election, because amongst the electorate there's a minimum of 20 to 30% of floating voters who have no idea which way to vote on voting day. And they might be attuned more to read the Sun newspaper than any other newspaper. So on the front page of the Sun newspaper, on voting day morning, they will put their faith behind a political leader. And that political leader is one that gets voted in, because the floating voters have their mind made up for them and join the flow. The Sun's got it, they must be right. I'm undecided, but the Sun must know what they're talking about. I believe in the Sun, therefore I will vote with the Sun. And one newspaper controls the politics of Britain. And you can spread that across, like in the States, it's Fox News, for instance, at the minute, are destroying or trying to destroy every other news body in the USA. And newspapers, Trump is taking down Washington Post, the New York Times, trying to close them all down. Close down anybody who's not pro-Trump, literally. And even now saying they must be executed. That's the last thing he's been saying. These people who are against me are treasonous, treacherous, treasonous, and therefore they must be executed. Wow, that's a strong one, isn't it? So where's the world going? No idea, Vince. And I've said it a few times. I'm glad I'm the age I am.
Okay, Terry, I'll go to the next one. It's not because we've run out of stuff to talk about. It's just basically for the sake of not being too repetitive and looking at some of these other things that I've found this week in the news. So I'll play the jingle and then we'll move on. It's Europe calling with Terry Whitehead and Vince Tracy. Okay, this one is about a family-run drug empire that forced disadvantaged kids as young as 12 into slavery. They've been hit by police who raided more than 20 homes believed to be involved in the crime ring. More than 250 officers were involved in raids of 22 homes across Manchester, Salford, Merseyside, Wales in a bid to take down the drug ring. Officers arrested 23 people, including 6 boys aged 13 to 17, with the rest being adult men. They were arrested on suspicion of a range of offences, including conspiracy to supply Class A and Class B drugs, modern-day slavery offences and robbery. Drugs, including cocaine and ketamine, were also seized along with £3,000 in cash, 8 Rolex watches, other valuables worth more than £40,000 and imitation firearms, knives and tasers. A caravan in a run-down Salford car park, believed to have been used as headquarters for the family-run organisation, was also seized. The raids, conducted under the codename Operation Copenhagen, came after 6 months of planning from Greater Manchester Police, with homes thought to be involved in drug running, money laundering and child slavery. It's also believed they were involved in violence and robberies committed against rival firms as taxers for encroaching on their turf. Now, I'm pretty avid at watching to see, what's being done. I don't remember seeing that.
No, I don't. Where was this?
Well, this is got to be very, very recent.
Yeah.
And, because obviously we're watching things, I watch the regional news as well. I watch the Merseyside and the Northwest News. I watch Birmingham News. We've always got the news coming from London. And, even down to now, you can see quite clearly that there's a cast of newsreaders that's completely changed. If you go by what you see on just the media, you'd think that the whole of the country's either gone black or have got sexual problems. And, it's not that I want to be saying these things. It's just basically my own common sense tells me there should be a reflection of the numbers that I see given as data statistics.
No, I agree entirely with that. Yeah, we've said this before about the soaps. All the soaps have got a completely unreliable spectrum of cast from colour to sexual orientation, shall we say? And you don't. How many Chinese people do you see in a soap? Not one.
Well, that could be for me to come straight in and say, well, I do think the Chinese are very proactive in everything at the moment. I mean, I think it was you that told me that the Chinese have bought the Spanish debt.
Yeah.
If you go from 15 minutes away from the airport at Valencia and you go into the trading estate, you see nothing but Chinese factories. If you go into Madrid, now I saw this on the Spanish TV a couple of years ago, where they were trying to find out what was going on in all theirs, because they've got a massive, even bigger array of Chinese warehouses. But the basic thing is, I have the feeling now, I think we must be able to see that the Muslim problem is worldwide. It's not basically just restricted anymore to Europe. I've got relatives in Australia giving me pictures of what's there. We know they're in America. We've seen what's happening.
Yeah, but being Muslim is not a problem. It's radical Islam is the problem. I'll extend it to what we first started talking about, the Taliban. It's the radicalness of, again, in Iran, almost a medieval regime there, the way they treat women. It's not an awful lot different to what's happening in Afghanistan, but Islam itself is a peaceful religion. It's not a problem. There are many Christian crusaders, in this world who go around killing people. But it's the radical side of it, and we only ever see the radical side of it. That's the sad part of it. So there must be a hell of a lot of good-natured Muslim people in this world who are sick and tired of a handful of their brethren, if you like, making life very, very difficult for them by the way they act, i.e. Radical Islamism.
But you see, what I see, you know what I'm like. I do go down lines to try to find out whether or not there's enough evidence. What I seem to see is that there could be the chance of the Muslim invasion. It's being paid for somewhere. So is it being paid for maybe by China, who are building all sorts of trafficking routes going across South Africa, across into South America? I mean, there's a huge amount of activity going on worldwide.
There's method in the madness, that's for sure.
So the money's got to come for me, either through maybe China or certainly from these countries where you've got oil and lots of money that can be spent. So something's happening.
To what end? What does China gain by that happening?
Well,
in the UK, for instance.
I was always told that the Chinese would eventually rule the world. That's what I was told. We know the Muslims have said they want to rule the world, and they're trying to outbreed. But it was always, and it's been in the scriptures, if people obviously want to look for clues. And I'm not trying to be proactive here, but it is said that this is where we're going to get most of the problems coming from. I'm going to go to another one completely different, because I know that you'll have a view on this, and you might be able to help me understand it a bit more, because I find this one quite difficult. Here's the next one. Okay, so we see President Trump doing all sorts at the moment. And in this article that I thought I need to ask you about, Trump was seen shaming former Prince Andrew over Jeffrey Epstein's Cesspool Island. I'm reading this for those that are listening in.
Yeah.
In a resurfaced clip taken 11 years before the ex-royal's arrest, Trump called out Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in February 2015 while at a Bloomberg Politics event. Andrew was stripped of his Duke of York and other royal military titles in November over his close ties to Epstein. A reporter brought up Epstein after Trump mentioned him during a question and answer session and asked Trump what else he thought about him. Well, I think he's got a problem, he said. That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it, Trump said as he smirked. This is what's written. The video re-emerged on the same day Andrew was taken into custody on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The former working royal was arrested, and it goes on to that side of what we do now know has happened. There's two things actually there. There's number one is if Trump is actually calling out Andrew. Now, you know I'm not a royalist, but I'm not anti-royal. I never have been. I'm just always aware that for me it needed to be pruned. It needed to be the right people doing the right jobs, being paid the right money, and not the hangers-on who we are now knowing have been seen to be doing things that maybe they shouldn't have done. And for me, even at this late stage, I'm not convinced that this is not trial by media and a way at getting at the royal family, rather than let's find out whether Andrew has just been absolutely a stupid young man and being influenced by wicked people, because he never struck me as being as wicked as what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, I don't think the word wicked. I just think he's an idiot. Don't forget, back in 82 in the Falklands, he was recognised for his gallantry in he was flying helicopters, trying to keep the flames away from the ships that had been blown up, and rescuing the survivors. He was involved heavily there, so he showed gallantry. He showed what we'd expect of certainly of the royal, but what we'd expect of you and I. So there's a good part in him. Now, somebody at some point has got hold of him and said, do you realise as a royal, you've got access to certain quarters of through doors that most people can't get, for sure. And hence, he was very quickly built up to be a trade delegate, whatever it was. Because I remember there was some controversy in Saudi Arabia. I remember him going out there, and it all started to fall apart for him. Because I thought at the time, why is he all of a sudden a trade envoy? What does he know about trade? He's flown helicopters, and he's a member of the royal family, but to know something about trade, you've got to be in business. He's never been in business. So he's obviously just a face, fronting people, like Trump. He's supposed to be a face, fronting people. And so he's sent out there as a face, fronting people. And at that point, somebody, if he's mixing with people, don't forget, who have barrow loads of cash every day to burn, literally, if they wish to. And so, like Trump gets given a 747 jet, as you do. So I can only assume that his head would have been bent by saying, look, we can give you millions and millions and millions. Can you work a bit harder and get us through doors to see this, that and the other? So it's not for what he knows. It's who perceived idea of who he may know, or the doors that he can open for some people to go through. And so I think that's how, I'm just making this up. So I can see that, how it could have turned his head, thinking, well, wait a minute, this is a nice life. And obviously he likes a bit of skirt, so don't we all? But school skirts are a bit different. No, but obviously, we're all men. So men like women, and women tend to like men. But anyway, so obviously he knows that, and somebody can work on that. If they feel he's got a failing there, or a lack of strength in himself regarding women, they can supply him with as many women as he wants. Because being in the public, the problem is that being a royal, you're in the public, as I always say. I have a lot of...
You always said that consistently.
They're born into slavery.
Yeah.
You can't...
I quote you on saying that.
You can't pass wind in public, without being on the front page of the newspapers. You can't go down the pub and have a drink. So somebody has given him the escape route of how he can really enjoy himself. There's this island, Epstein's Island, where everything happens. And everything is made to happen, tailor-made to whatever you want. All you've got to do is just keep feeding us a bit of information here, there and everywhere, and we will feed you. So let's get it straight. This guy himself, former Prince Andrew, I don't think he's the sharpest pencil in the pack, but he knows how to open doors. And that's all he had to do, was open the door and let somebody in. I think for that, he got paid generously. Mandelson's going down the same way now. He was arrested last night on a similar thing. And he was clever at it. And you know, for basically, I remember him as being a communist, so he's come a long way to become a Lord Mandelson. But hopefully he'll rot in jail for a long time.
Isn't that absolutely in line with the cultural hegemony theme that I often now find myself drifting towards? Which is basically, if, as you say, he's been a communist, if we know Starmer has leanings very, very left, if we know that he's got people out of bad situations from the legal side of it, then really that's totally and utterly in the classic cultural hegemony. Put people in situations.
They're not leaders. Starmer's certainly not a leader. He's weak. How many 15 U-turns has he had now?
But he's blocking everything else. And I mean, if you've got
listen, he'll be gone. There's a by-election. Is it this week or next week? There's a by-election. When that result comes through, I think you'll find he'll be gone. He'll be very happy to take a stage left.
I want to go back to Andrew for another point that I think tends not to be seen in the media. There was also, if this has all been going on, and the age of consent, or shall we say, I don't really want to say acceptability, but probably that would be more like it. In Britain, it was always about 16 to 18, whereas America tended to be over 21, I think.
Yeah.
And I think nobody's pointed that out. And, you know, I hope that Prince Andrew, as was, can come out of this with something that doesn't show him to be a paedophile, and I hope.
I don't think he's a paedophile. No, I just think he likes a bit of skirt. And then don't forget, as a Brit, as you pointed out, an adult having sex with a 16-year-old girl is perfectly normal. It's not normal in the States. So somebody having sex with a 16 or 17-year-old girl in the States, they're under 18, and that becomes having sex with a minor. I presume not in all states, but I imagine in most. And like I said before, 21 was the legal age to get a drink.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't drink alcohol under the age of 21. I don't know if that's still going on. But there are some really old archaic laws about there, and people can fall foul of it. Epstein's case, I always thought because he procured a young girl for sex. I always thought because she was 16, but they keep saying she's 14 now. I always thought originally it was 16, in which case I'm thinking, yeah, dirty old bugger, but technically he hasn't broken the law.
Yeah.
Here, in the UK, or in Spain.
Okay, well, look, we've only got about 10 minutes left of this podcast, and I wanted to try and just get your thoughts on this one as well, which I think can be seen as maybe something good. It might be also something strange. So the European Investment Bank has granted €50 million to Iberdrola to rebuild and modernise flood-hit electricity infrastructure in Valencia, aiming to climate-proof the network and improve energy resilience for over 650,000 customers. So the loan will be used in the following way. 25 million from the EIB, the European Investment Bank's own resources, 25 million from Spain's Regional Resilience Fund, managed by the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Enterprise, and the funding will help Iberdrola rebuild and upgrade damaged infrastructure, move overhead lines underground, raise or resize transformer substations, expand automation, and install smart transformers. And then finally, the goal is to increase the grid's resilience and enable better integration of renewable energy, all the while boosting electricity supply security. This has been ongoing, hasn't it, since the end of the Darla incident. And of course, meanwhile, we've had heavy flooding again in this area, plus dreadful stuff down
Gales,
in Malaga.
yeah, gales as well.
Yeah. So,
Well, our power lines were blown down. We were without power. The neighbours had an extension put on his roof, and our power lines go from roof to roof. And the builder made an absolute mess of it, and didn't secure the post that was carrying the power from his neighbour's house to his house, from his house to my house, and my house to my neighbour, so that it came down. He also had some solar panels put on his roof, and instead of paying them to have them fixed properly, he had 4 50 kilogram concrete curbs placed on them to hold them on the roof. The wind picked them up and threw the 4 50 kilogram curbs and the solar panels off the roof, and one of them smashed into his car that was parked. He wasn't there. But that panel then brought down the electric cables down, so we were without power. Luckily, the neighbour after me, he was the last, I'm the penultimate one. The neighbour after me, his mate's electrician, and he came out on the Sunday that it happened, and they repaired the lines. Now, the electric board were down, 10 days later the electric board were down there with their hands on the hips, looking at it and what to do, but still nothing's happened. We had a message that yesterday they were going to cut our power off to sort the lines out. Nothing happened. So we're still waiting. So if our neighbour and his mate the electrician hadn't fixed the cables, we would still be in trouble. Now, you mentioned a figure before that of how much they're going to give to Iberdrola, 50 billion, was it something?
yeah.
Won't even scratch the surface of what you've said they want to do. To change that infrastructure is going to cost a lot more than that. A lot more than that. But I'd imagine a lot of that go in somebody's back pocket, that's for sure.
Okay, look, we don't really talk enough about Spain, and it is most important for expats, and obviously we live here. So what do you think is really going on in the government at the moment? Because, I watch a little bit of it, and I can understand enough to follow that there's obviously a movement away to the left still. And with this amnesty for these 500,000 people that come from different parts, a lot from South America as opposed to coming in on the boats. But I mean, I still think that that's a rather weird one to bring in. What do you get the feelings going on with that?
It makes money. If you legalise an illegal workforce, that's what you're talking about. If you legalise an illegal workforce, they start paying tax, and it's all about money. You know that word, that 5-letter word, Vince. Everything is about the money. Just follow the money. And sadly, that conversation we've had for a long time, it's become very evident the last 18 months, 2 years, that money is in the hand of very, very few people. We're talking trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in finance that is being used to perpetrate the very things we've been talking about today, to change the world, slanted their way, everything their way. And the question I have to ask, Vince, we're all going to die. You ain't going to take your money with you, mate. I don't care how many trillions you got, you're not taking it with you. So what kick are you getting out of this, destroying everybody's lives? We have to answer that question, and people have got to ask it across the world.
I have to be very honest that I get a lot of solace, and I do feel a lot better when I go and sit in a church and listen and think. I don't condemn anybody else's ways of what they want to follow or anything like that, but I do feel that there is a spiritual thing that is happening to us. I do feel that. Now, obviously, I see it from the Bible. I see it from some of the things that we do see coming into play. I mean, just the politics, the way it's drifting towards a big punch-up in Persia, which, whether we like it or not, that worries me. It worries me. I don't really talk too much about it because I don't worry other people, but it is foretold.
Well, it's foretold. I'll tell you why it's foretold. Netanyahu, as far as I'm concerned, started that war 4 years ago with the Palestine war. You can't tell me that the Hamas rebels can cross into Israel for about 12 hours and slaughter and torture and kidnap people without anybody raising a rifle against them.
I do remember you talking about this.
Netanyahu was on the point of being thrown out of government, out of power, and into a jail for corruption, apparently. And the only way he could get past this was create a war, which he did. Now look, cast yourself forward 4 years. What's happening now in the Middle East? Trump is under flak with the Epstein files. It's going to come out at some point. He knows that. He knows he's 80 years old coming up, 79, isn't he? He's not got that long in front of him. He wants to die without the smear against him, and he's convinced he can buy his way out of it. But it's getting to the point now he's realising maybe he can't. But what better way than to cause a war and deflect attention?
Well, it's legendary, isn't it? I mean, we had that with our own Prime Minister going to the Falklands. And
absolutely. Saved our government, there's no doubt about that.
The sad thing is that you know, we'll never know until the day we die, probably. Or maybe even then we don't know.
Not even then.
So those that are listening to our podcast, we are not trying to make you think some ways in particular. I do think, quite honestly, that there's a spiritual battle going on. And I do feel it's a battle between good people and bad people. I do feel that.
And there's more good than bad.
I think there are.
But you see, that's never frightened dictators, has it? Hitler came to power with a very small band of people, and look what he did. And nearly succeeded in taking on the world.
We live in Spain. I've got to quickly tell you that recent national polling trends show me that the PP, that's the Conservatives, are leading with around 29 to 31%. PSOE, which is the Labour, only about a point behind, 28%.
Home government.
And Vox rising to around 18%, which could, if the PP decided to go into coalition. Now, is the time, do you think, to save a great country? Because Spain's a great country.
It is a great country.
And is the time, do you think, to save the United Kingdom?
I don't know how you're going to save the United Kingdom. I fear the word. Listen, there isn't a party that can save the United Kingdom. I mean, the Reform Party would probably get in, but they haven't got anybody. They're getting a few second-hand Conservative MPs to come over to their side because we'll get a bit of power and money, and that's what they want. But they haven't really got any. There's no Winston Churchills amongst them.
I don't think there are. I do think that even though it's Tory defections, I'd rather see somebody who had some experience from a responsible party.
Yeah, than no experience at all.
Because unfortunately,
there will be more. There'll be a lot more as you get closer to any sort of election. You'll see an awful lot of Conservatives just drift across to the Reform Party because they'll know if you want to stay in your job, you've got to change sides.
Well, I have to say, the only way I can see that things can get back to any form of normality, and that's a big statement really, if we really had time to go into it a bit more, is if we get a bigger swing to the right over in Spain here. I'd like to see something going back to more conservative values everywhere.
But I've said this so many times. I've been here 51 years now, right? I've been here under Franco, under dictatorship. I've been here in the early years of democracy. I've been here when the two parties were created, the PP and the PSOE. I've been here when there's now like 15 parties in government. But every time an election is called and every time an election is won or lost, it changes hands. Nothing happens, Vince. Nothing changes. Nothing changes in my world if one party wins and the other one loses. Nothing changes at all.
Well, it's that music again. Well, I go and pray that it will change. So, you know, whether
we live in hope.
Whether I'm totally wasting my time or not, I've got to say the churches have been packed over the last couple of weeks. And, okay, there's a lot of older people.
So have the football grounds, Vince. There might be more at the football grounds.
Yeah, but they don't really pray, do they?
They do. There's a lot of praying going on.
Oh, yeah, maybe they do. You're quite right. Okay, Terry, well, thanks very much. It's been nice for you to come and obviously visit us. Yeah, it's been really nice.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks very much indeed. And I'll send you all the links and send you the detail once we get it.